Hey YouTube, it's Kimmy Smooth again with our next lesson. This lesson is going to go a little bit more into the difference between slavery in Africa versus chattel slavery here in America. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. And basically, we're just going to talk about, slavery in Africa was not monolithic. It existed in various forms depending on the region, culture, and period. It was more fluid and not necessarily racially based. I mentioned that earlier. Most often it was debt slavery. People could become slaves as a result of debt or as a punishment for crimes. There were prisoners of war. Many slaves were taken as captives during conflicts and wars between African kingdoms. And then there was domestic and labor slavery, often involved working within households and agriculture or as artisans. In some societies, enslaved people could integrate into families and even rise in status. And then there was social mobility. In many African societies, enslaved individuals had the potential for social mobility. For example, they could buy their freedom. They could even marry into the family of their captors or gain positions of authority. And then in some kingdoms, slaves could even hold important positions as soldiers, advisors, and or in administrative roles. And in some African cultures, enslaved people could maintain relationships with their families and in some cases even inherit property. It was not racially defined. African slavery was not inherently racial. Many enslaved people were from different ethnic groups or prisoners of war, regardless of skin color, and African societies didn't view slavery through a racial lens, as they were more focused on warfare and political control. Basically, slavery existed within African societies long before the transatlantic slave trade. It was localized and not initially tied to a larger international economic system. Now, some kingdoms, such as the Dahomey, Ashanti, and Oyo, participated in the slave trade by selling captives to European traders for goods like firearms, textiles, and alcohol. However, the domestic systems of slavery were far more varied. So it goes back to basically what I was just telling you. Enslaved people in Africa, they were often able to maintain cultural practices. They were integrated into the larger society over time, while others were used in warfare or agriculture. But the racial identity of enslaved people was not a focal point. So basically, that right there bites back on the whole thing about, oh, there were slaves, you all soldiers, the people, your own people into slavery. It was different.